There are two major things that I want to talk about in this video. First, is Ashes of Creation Alpha 2 going to be smaller than most people expect? And second, is the Alpha 2 for Ashes of Creation destined to fail? But let's jump in and let's talk about why we're going to talk about this and get to the point. So the reason we're talking about this is this video is sort of inspired by Narc's latest video, where he addresses some of his concerns both for Intrepid and Ashes of Creation and the Alpha 2 specifically. Now, it's not a direct rebuttal or anything like that, but I'm sort of inspired about these topics, which, to be fair, I wanted to talk about anyway. And the first one, as I alluded to, is the size of Ashes of Creation Alpha 2 and what's actually going to be in it. In theory, most of the core systems are going to be present in some way, shape, or form. Now, it doesn't include everything, doesn't include all of the content, but the systems in theory are going to be present. I think sailing's not going to be there. That's one major content thing that's not going to be there, but the node system's going to be there, caravans are going to be there, etc, etc. However, we don't currently know everything that's going to be in the Alpha 2, and that's something that Margaret recently has said they're going to lay out a plan and just be patient with them. Narc's concerns, I think, were mainly about like what they'd shown off previously and the size at which we expected the Alpha to be. Like, how many biomes was it going to be? How much of the world map itself is going to be ready? And how deep are the actual systems going to be? Obviously, as I said, we can't really know that right now. There's only certain areas, if you watch the dev videos, that they're actually showing off, and that makes sense. The main thing with Ashes of Creation Alpha 2 will be, what are they keeping from us intentionally, and what are they keeping from us simply because they don't have it? In his video, Narc mentioned spoilers, and that's sort of one thing I also wanted to talk about a little bit. Ashes of Creation, as much as they might try and say we're going to avoid spoilers, not everybody's going to know everything about the game, the reality is this is an open development MMO. It's going to be probably quite solved. People are going to know the meta, people are going to know the best ways to level up, people are going to actually probably know some of the quests, if not all of the quests in some areas. It might be that the alpha and the betas and stuff like that really only focus on systems and the content is only tested by an elite few. But at the minute, I don't see any way that this game can't be an overly solved MMO before it even releases. That's the trend in gaming, that's the trend whenever you have alphas and betas, it's probably going to happen. So the argument could be that they're going to withhold some stuff simply to try and keep it secret and a surprise. I'm not sure that's really going to last, even if it is true. Personally, I'm not really going to worry about this one until we actually see what's in the Alpha 2. And then the key thing will be, how quickly do we get new stuff? Are we actually going to get everything, or are they going to keep things secret and a surprise? How quickly will the beta arrive? There are some really deep questions about the speed of which content is actually being created. It sounds a little bit harsh, but if the game takes too long to be made, people might get fatigued, people might move on to something else if it ever comes out. I would have said the Riot MMO, but well, that's not happening for a while either. So let's not worry about too much about if it's going to be small enough or big enough or what have you. If you've paid $250 to get in, you're probably just excited to play it and see. For me, as a content creator, my bigger worry is how popular will Ashes of Creation Alpha 2 be? And I know that some of you will say, why do I give a damn about that? You will give a damn about that if you care about Ashes of Creation because you want the sentiment around the game to be generally positive. If the permanent alpha for Ashes of Creation basically has a hype of maybe like a couple of days and then it tails off and there's only like 10 people watching it, then that won't be good for the game. And it won't be good for the hype of the game, the marketing, and the future revenue of the game. Whilst these alphas and betas and stuff like that are actually like technical alphas, they're not necessarily like marketing alphas, there is quite a bit of an element of marketing involved. I remember with Ashes of Creation Alpha 1, Stephen actually moved it to swerve some other MMOs, which I can't actually remember what they were. It may have been New World and World of Warcraft Classic. Can't remember. Don't comment, I don't really care that much. But basically, they sort of self-admitted that the alpha was a marketing tool to some extent. So what's the problem with Ashes Alpha 2? Well, the problem is the fact that they've stopped selling the buy-ins. If you've not got any package right now, you cannot play Alpha 2. If you have a beta package or what have you, you can actually upgrade it. But if you don't have any package, you can't get into Alpha 2. And now when it comes to like Twitch viewership specifically, doesn't really apply to YouTube. I think it's going to be interesting to see how many people will watch a game when they can't play the game. My experience on Twitch has been that a lot of people's interest sort of comes if they can come in and try it themselves, even if they actually don't do that because maybe it's a beta and alpha or what have you. Recently, for example, games like Throne of Liberty, and let's not talk about the quality of that game, very strongly lost interest on Twitch because nobody can play it. When that game goes global, because people can play it, I suspect the numbers will be much higher, even though obviously it's a proper release, so the interest will be much higher, but you sort of get what I'm saying. When it comes to Twitch, I think a lot of it is sort of like people just checking out a game for a couple of different reasons. One, is the game good? Does it look interesting? And then two, maybe should I buy it and should I play? Well, number two is not really relevant when it comes to Ashes of Creation Alpha 2 because you can't buy in. Except maybe that will change. I know they said they might reopen packages. What I sort of expect, and I have no idea, this is complete wild speculation on my part, is that they will reopen the packages. There's a couple of different things that they could do. For example, they could sell a package without all of the extras. I can't remember what exactly is in the Alpha 2, but there's like $100 of playtime, $100 of store credit, etc. If you took all of that away and you literally just sold the Alpha 2 key, you could possibly sell it for $100. Now, would that annoy the people who are already bought in? Maybe. So a big element for me is just what's going to be the marketing around it. Like, they're probably going to do a big marketing push, but it's a bit weird when it doesn't actually benefit the company that much. Like, if people can't then fund the game, all it is people wishlisting or whatever when it comes to, you know, the hype of Ashes of Creation. People will be like just looking to see if it's good, if it's bad. They won't be looking if they should support it right now because you can't. Obviously, they could change that, and I sort of suspect they will, and I actually sort of hope they do, because once people start seeing other streamers and stuff like that playing it, they'll want to join in, and then they won't be able to. Now, I know the main purpose of this alpha is actually, you know, technical testing and stuff like that. The marketing is actually super important, whether or not you want that to be the case. I've said before that actually the Alpha 2 might even be make or break for the game. If the game looks scuffed, it doesn't play well, it's not interesting, it's visually unappealing, the gameplay is boring, etc, etc, then the interest in the game might very quickly dwindle. So that's a risk in itself. And simply people might get bored with it as well, because you can actually see the gameplay anytime you like. It might be possible that people will get bored with it. There is actually another risk that if they do open up alpha keys again, so you can actually buy in, we might end up with a situation like Star Citizen, where the game is basically a storefront with a game attached. I'm just quoting Pirate Gaming there, don't hate me. But you could end up with an alpha that just goes on and on and on, and they don't really have a big financial incentive to release it because you can actually currently play it. So that's a risk if they just have the keys on sale all the time. I mean, at the end of the day, do we know if Ashes of Creation will be the greatest game ever? Do we know that the systems will be good for everybody? We don't know anything like that. We don't really know what's even in Ashes of Creation Alpha 2. But there are some reasons to be not overly concerned, but there are some reasons and some interesting points to think about, and we'll see what Intrepid deliver us, well, sometimes this year, because it's coming in Q3. Big shout out to my Patreons. If you want to support me, that's the best way. You can always come and talk to me over on Twitch. I stream 6 days a week. Yes, I'm streaming New World, and yes, that game is semi-dead, but you know what? I like it for now, and Alpha 2 isn't here yet, so what am I going to do? Play Pantheon? For now, have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.